Hi there, and welcome to Open Class number 110. Hope you'll find a lot of value here. And for some of you, you may have been wondering, where's Coach Daniel been? It's been a while since there was any new content. Well, I was out of town for a week, having a little vacation with my family, so that is why. And excited to be back. And for those of you who have submitted questions for Open Class, I'm a little behind, but I think I'll actually catch up this week because we have Open Class now 110. And then actually tomorrow, I think I'll release 111, which is going to be with Laura, one of who's contributed with the success story here. And then Sarah too, Thursday with Sarah, who's also submitted a success story here. So I think looking promising to be caught up with all the questions that have come in for Open Class. And with that said, I don't think there's any other announcements today. We'll jump into the questions. And as always, nothing is medical advice, just general thoughts and comments that I hope will help anyone that tunes in here. So let us take a look at four. I picked 4 questions for today. The first one is from Hameela. Let's read this. Hi there, Daniel. I've been a lurker on your channel for a good while. I can't express how much this helped me get better. Super glad to hear that, and super nice of you to submit this question. Thank you for existing. It's helped so much. However, I have a problem which I can't tell if it is a problem or not. I'm just going to take a pause there for 1 second and say, whenever I get this type of question, in this, like in the insomnia, anxiety, emotional space, like, I don't know if this is a problem or not. To me, the default answer to that is always no, right? Because there really is no real problem in this world. It's all kind of like ideas and thoughts and perceived threats. And another common one is like, should I worry about this or no? And the default answer will always be no. I can't really think of any example where would be yes. But just a little comment there. Let's keep reading. Maybe I'll contradict myself here. Okay, I can't tell if this is a problem or not because it doesn't make me anxious. It just annoys me now. So for a week or so, I've been going through this weird sleep-wake thing. I go to bed when I think I'm sleepy, normally at the same time every night. And the minute I lie down and slowly start to drift off, my brain jolts me almost awake with a fast heartbeat and everything. For no reason. I don't feel threatened. Neither do I have nightmares. But instead of letting me drift off to sleep, it just jolts me awake even more. I can't see a reason for this. Maybe I'm not sleepy enough? But that's rarely been a reason for the trouble in the past for me. So I don't know. It's annoying me because then it keeps me awake till 5 in the morning. I don't know what to do. Looking forward to a response. Hameela, thanks so much for this question. It's a pretty common question, and there are like a couple of different aspects to this. I think we'll start talking about something that you may have heard of. That I call the Houdini effect, which is basically just evidence that the brain is working as it should, like it's kind of a normal thing. So in the example I usually like to use is that you're sleepy, you go to bed, you find yourself drifting off, and then you have this thought, which is, oh my gosh, I left the oven on. The oven is on, and then you're immediately like wide awake because there's a safety concern here. What if the house burns down, right? So you go up, turn off the oven, and then you can sleep again. And completely normal. And in context, if somebody told you this happened, they'd be like, yeah, so what? That's normal, right? But often what happens is when you've had trouble sleeping for a while, there is this fear in the brain, like, what if I can't sleep? What if I'm awake at night? What if I wake up? Things of that nature. And then you can kind of feel yourself drifting off. And then there's like a thought somewhere there that isn't really apparent, but there's some kind of like, what if I don't fall asleep? What if I jerk awake? What if this happens? And that thought is just like, what is the oven? I left the oven on. It's like some worry, something dangerous can be happening, maybe happening here. And then you're wide awake. You kind of use safety mode. And the tricky thing is that, the brain wakes you up because it is afraid that you will be awake. That's kind of the conundrum here. That's why it seems like it's out of context. It's bizarre. It's like, why did that happen? So that's like the Houdini effect. And the tricky thing can be that you don't identify the thought because you're about to fall asleep, and it's kind of almost a subconscious thought, like, what if I don't fall asleep? And then you're like wide awake. You just notice the reaction, if you will, the response. It's now this message was not like the classic Houdini effect. It also had a component of what we call hypnic awareness, which is sort of similar, but that's when you're about to drift off, and then you're like, I'm about to fall asleep, and then you wake up. Like taking note of the process of falling asleep, is alerting. And that's also nothing strange or unusual at all. In fact, we have a whole playlist about that. If you go to any new episode, go into the description, and there's a playlist on hypnic jerks and hypnic awareness, which I think will help. And the key to that one is that, my favorite analogy to that one is that when we transition from wakefulness, from the wakeful state to the sleep state, we can think of it as kind of an airplane coming in for landing, that there will be some turbulence. There's some normal turbulence. It's not really a smooth transitioning necessarily. There's kind of like something's changing in our bodies. Like often we have like these jerks as we're about to fall asleep, whole body jerks, just part of our body's jerk, or we can have like this awareness, like, oh, I'm about to fall asleep. And the thing is, like, if an airplane goes down for landing and there's some turbulence, and the pilot says, oh no, there's turbulence, I got to get up again, then there might take a while before you land. And it's the same thing here. Like you are about to fall asleep, and then you're like, whoa, I was about to fall asleep, and then you wake up. That's not strange. It's kind of like just turbulence. I woke up, that's turbulence, and that's normal. Like, I had a jerk, and that's not turbulence. As long as you don't abort, kind of like, you're like, why did it happen? What should I do to prevent this? How can I figure this out? What is it? I need to Google this. That's what keeps it going. But if you just look at it as some turbulence, then you will soon have landed, if you will soon sleep. And I think, was there anything more there from Hameela that we should comment on? Oh yeah, there was one more thing. Actually 2 more things very briefly here. I don't feel threatened, neither do I have nightmares. This is a little bit of a different topic here, but it's something I call like trailing insomnia, which is like, I don't feel anxious, but I don't sleep. Oftentimes, the hyperarousal that often is driven by anxiety, you're kind of hyper alert, hyper vigilant, like you're anxious, you think something's going to hurt you. That creates that hyperarousal, keeps sleep from happening. But hyperarousal can come from other things, such as curiosity, bewilderment, excitement. So oftentimes when the anxiety isn't there anymore, you're still curious. You're like, what's going to happen now? I'm not anxious, so I'm probably going to sleep, or maybe not. What if I don't sleep even if I'm not anxious? Like, that curiosity can now cause some hyperarousal that can keep sleep from happening. Very common. And when you just know about that, you sort of like, you become less interested in the whole thing. When you become kind of disinterested, then there's no hyperarousal anymore, and it fades away. And then finally, just a little comment there, like about like, I go to bed when I'm sleepy and about the same time every night. There can be a little effort there. Like, when we try to like make sure that we're sleepy, like, am I sleepy enough? Yeah, I feel sleepy. This is the time. Then there's some thought about like, I need to be sleepy to sleep. And that anything we feel is necessary for sleep can become this effort. Like, we're trying to like control sleep or make sleep happen. And same thing with, I go to bed the same time every night. Maybe there's some effort there. Maybe you're kind of trying to make sleep happen or something like that. So I think it can be helpful to maybe be a little bit more flexible there. And if you feel like going to bed to read a book early some night, or you feel like staying up some other night, or you go to bed even if you're not sleepy, and like, just make it fuzzy, I think that helps, generally speaking. So Hameela, I hope that helped. And any follow-up questions, please submit them to Open Class. Now let's look at our next question from Gillian. Hi, Daniel. This time last week, I watched your video about the timeless sleep window. It really clicked with me that night. I had the best night's sleep I've had for months. I immediately stopped doing my sleep diary and all the calculations about my sleep efficiency, etc. Every night when I go to bed, I say to myself, you have no control over whether you sleep or not, and it doesn't matter whether you sleep or not. Those 2 sentences seem to work like magic sleeping pills for me. I've had better sleep in the past weeks than I've had for literally months, if not years. I've even had one night where I slept through the night without waking up. Most nights I wake up but fall asleep again easily. So firstly, a huge thank you for the video. Super glad to read this anytime. I still have a couple of questions though. My timeless sleep window is 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. But often I find that around 9 p.m. or sometimes earlier, I have an almost overpowering urge to sleep. So far, I've been resisting it, waiting till 10 p.m. to go to bed, but it is a bit confusing. Is it my body's way of saying I need to go to bed earlier than 10 p.m.? Similarly, although I set my alarm for 5 a.m., I am nearly always awake before the alarm around 4:30 a.m. So I don't know if these things mean I need to adjust my sleep window and make 9 p.m., 4 p.m. My window. I don't really want this though. because that sleep window feels a bit crazy. I would like to train my brain to sleep between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. Do you think it is just a case of giving it more time before my body really gets used to the better sleeping? Thanks in advance. Also, please let me know if you answer this question via YouTube so I can be sure to watch it. I always do that. So, but that said, I'll make sure to send a message to Gillian to make sure she does see this. So, okay. Jake says, good to see you back on the channel. Thanks so much, Jake. Thanks for all the support. Okay, Gillian, firstly, super glad, of course, that the timeless sleep window video in particular was so helpful. For anyone who hasn't seen it, check out, you can just browse it in like the most recent videos, or you can go to the This Is Not a playlist. It's the most recent addition to that playlist, and that place is in the description of any new video. All right, so so the question here is, okay, Gillian feels like really sleepy before 10 p.m. and why is that? Well, probably it's just evidence that there is some sleep drive. The body wants to sleep, and at 9 p.m., which there's even like oftentimes we feel sleepy in the evening because there's really absolutely no pressure to sleep. In fact, at 9 p.m. or 7 p.m. or 7:30, 8, something like that, we often want to be awake. We often want to enjoy some, watch some Netflix or hang out with family or something like that. And when you want to be awake, then there's absolutely no threat. Like there's like the brain is like, oh, being awake is super safe. It's the thing I want to do. And then like you can easily feel sleepy because that's like, which is the opposite of like when you're really afraid, like I don't want to be awake. I cannot be awake, which happens often when you want to sleep, right? Then the opposite thing happens. So it's very normal to have this sleepiness. Now, I think that if you would, I would say like one thought here when you hear this is like, okay, so we have a scenario where there's this timeless sleep window from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. where Gillian is not checking the time, and just if she feels like it's time to sleep, she just sleeps, etc. Which I think that the way is super helpful. But it's almost like 10 p.m. now becomes like almost like a goal, like I have to reach 10 p.m., which can create a little bit of pressure and a little bit of preoccupation. So one option is to say kind of like a compromise, if you will, and say like, okay, my timeless sleep window is going to be like 9:30 to 5, I'm going to stay up till 9:30, which is not very close to 9, right? And it's even more of like letting go, even less pressure, even kind of more generosity, that can help. And also you can just maybe, you can allow yourself to sleep at 9, but there definitely is like the possibility that you'll just like sort of run out of sleep drive at like, 3:30 instead, and you'll just wake up earlier. But on the flip side, if you allow yourself to sleep at 9, you may also find that, oh, I slept pretty well because there was even less pressure to sleep. So you can see how this kind of gets fuzzy. That time of sleep window, I think, is a really, really helpful thing when you're starting to learn about sleep and you need some kind of structure. But then it's of course not something you want to, you need to do or want to do for the rest of your life, right? Eventually you just want to like, not even think about it. So in summary here, I think my thought here is that, yes, you could allow yourself to sleep earlier, just be more flexible. You could set that time of sleep window to like maybe 9:30 instead and still have the alarm go off at 5 or something like that. But I think honestly, probably the most helpful when things are sort of like things have been getting easier, things have been better, is just not change anything. That almost always is the best, not change anything. Just like, okay, I wake up a little early, I feel sleepy in the evening, but overall things are getting better. I'm not going to change anything. And then I think naturally there will become a time where you almost forget about this. You're like, oh, it's 9:30 and I feel sleepy. I'm just going to sleep. I think this time of sleep window tool, if you look at that, will kind of fade out by itself as time goes by. So a long way of saying that, I think in this situation, the best is probably just to keep doing what you're doing. And yes, maybe stay up till 10 at least, probably is the best. So I hope this helped, Gillian. And, for those of you who read the thumbnail, like, can you train yourself to sleep from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m.? No, we can't. We have no control over sleep whatsoever, as Gillian said. But paradoxically is when we say like, from this time to this time, I'm not going to try to control it whatsoever, then sleep can easily happen, between those 2 times or so. And one last thing here is that a lot of times people have this question of like, it seems like I get sleepy early and I wake up early. So does that mean that I have the circadian rhythm that is earlier and I should just kind of like accept that and go with that? And I think the answer to that is no. Like, yes, we all have maybe some preferences. Maybe some of us are kind of more like night owls. Some of us enjoy the early morning more, etc. Be sure that we have that. But we can adjust, we can all adjust. If you go to bed a little later over time, you'll find that there's no struggle with that, etc. So I think if it kind of suits you to go to bed around 10 and have an alarm about 5, I think that's totally fine. There's no like circadian rhythm issue there or something like that. Okay, I hope that helped, Gillian. Any follow-up questions, do let us know. Okay, we will look at a question from Pat here, who's been a real supporter of the channel. And thanks for being in touch, Pat. Hi, Daniel. Hope you're well. For the past 3 weeks or so, I've been having trouble falling asleep, but I do fall asleep after 1 or 2 hours and seem to sleep well as I feel rested upon awakening. I decided to cut back on my wine consumption at dinner as I felt I was having 1 glass too many. I told myself that it would probably take me longer to fall asleep, and alas, it has. I feel as though I set my brain up to believe this. This past week, I've been struggling more, and I've had a couple of nights of little to poor sleep. I've not reacted to it, and I've taken it in stride, continuing to go about my day as usual. However, I cannot deny that I'm concerned about a recurrence of insomnia. I truly do not think that's the case, but in the back of my mind, that worry is there. I also had a spat with my adult daughter, and I know that is causing me some stress and anxiety. Any advice as for how to proceed and get over the speed bump? Thank you so much. Anytime, Pat, and I want to say firstly that I'm glad you already, you are familiar with the terminology of like the speed bump, which I think is, I haven't come up with anything better, but I think it's more helpful than think of it as like a relapse, which implies that there's something wrong with you or that insomnia kind of is a thing that can come back, which it isn't. It is just like sometimes we're stressed, we have ideas, we have thoughts that can produce this hyperarousal that makes us sleep less. And oftentimes we can sleep well for a while, and then something happens, and then there's a little bit more hyperarousal, and then we sleep a little bit less, and then this idea can, of course, pop up. Like, what if I'm going to have trouble sleeping for a long time again? Is the insomnia back? Things of that nature. All that's completely normal. Now, one thing that I think is really helpful is to know that once you've understood, you can still have trouble sleeping stretches of times and things like that, but you can really never go back down the rabbit hole, because someone like yourself, Pat, who understands so well, I mean, there's just no way that you're going to go like Googling, going on Facebook groups, going on Reddit, trying to find the answers, starting to take supplements, starting experimenting. And so even if you had a stretch of sleeping little, you're not going to go back. You're not going to go into the rabbit hole. You just have so much education. So I want to say that once you have that understanding, then you're sort of immune to insomnia in a way, because you'll have some struggle, but it'll never happen again like it happens when you don't have understanding. So that I think is really helpful. Now, in a way, that's maybe the most important with speed bumps, is seeing why they happened, and a big part of that is that there can often be a little confusion. When you've had a stretch of time where you slept easier, and then you have some trouble sleeping, then an idea often becomes like, oh, I must have been doing something that worked before, and now I'm not doing that anymore, and therefore I have to figure out what I was doing and do it. Like, and that can be a little bit of a like temptation there. And the key there is to see that, no, it wasn't that you were doing anything. In fact, it was that you were letting go of control. You were letting things be. It was the absence of trying that led to sleeping easier. It always is. And here we see the wine come in, which is like, okay, why am I sleeping less? Yes, it's probably because I was cutting down on wine. And maybe, so where does that lead me then? Should I go back to drinking more wine, which I really don't, because I thought it was a bit too much. But if I don't, then am I not going to sleep? And if I don't sleep, will I have what, et cetera, et cetera. And you've already seen here that, you can sleep really well with or without wine. You know, all humans can. And, you know, maybe there is some sedation that lifts when you cut down on it, and maybe you have some more, it takes a little longer for some time. But I think really it's the thought much more than the wine that matters. You know, it's the thinking like, oh, I've cut down on wine. I wonder how this is going to affect my sleep, or I'll probably take longer. That causes much more hyperarousal, in my opinion, than, you know, the decrease of the wine. I think by like, I don't know, 100-fold or something like that. Like the actual decrease in wine, the impact of that is way, 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 way smaller, in my opinion, than the thought about, you know, drinking less wine. And, you know, when we have the scenario of like, it takes me an hour or 2 hours to fall asleep, I always think of like, is this person maybe like waiting for sleep to happen, like kind of going to bed and say like, okay, let's see how things go. It's been probably half an hour. Okay, that's fine. It's been maybe 1 hour. And then the next morning, like, I think it took me an hour and a half yesterday, which is fine, something like that, which we still have this element of kind of waiting for sleep to happen. And like anything else in life, when we're waiting for something to happen, it often feels like it takes a long time, as opposed to when we're not waiting anymore, then, you know, time goes by. So I think what can really help is to maybe have something, you know, you go to bed and you do something that you enjoy, like you read a nice book, or you watch some Netflix, or you do something that takes you from waiting for sleep to happen. I think that can really help. And we had this argument with a daughter, completely normal, that will cause some sleepless nights. So I think the key thing for speed bumps is always like, when you don't respond particular to it, you see that you start sleeping easier again, and then something big has happened, which is that the fear of the speed bump is reduced. You're like, okay, if I have another speed bump like this, that's okay. You know, I know it'll go away by itself, and then things get easier and easier as we go along. So I hope that helped, Pat. If not, please let us know, and we'll answer in more detail. And then finally, we have Kevin. Hello, Daniel, or whoever is reading this. I was wondering if you could create a video talking about this disease. This disease is related to SFI. They're both prion diseases. I've been seeing in the insomnia community that people are worried about this disease. So it would be great if you make a video talking about this condition, the sporadic one. It might reassure a lot of people. Also, I think you would be able to get a lot of information about this specific disease, because it's way more common than SFI, but it's still rare, 1 in a million. Thank you so much regarding this. I don't know which it is. So I want to say, Kevin, that I have a whole playlist on like SFI and FFI, which you'll find in the description of any new video. If it is some other thing that you'd like me to talk about, then just specify which it is. But other than that, like if it was one of these what's called fatal insomnias, which have nothing to do with insomnia, then know that there's a playlist, I should say, on this in the description of any new video. Cool. So with that said, I want to thank everyone who has submitted questions to the channel, and we'll have more open classes this week, and planning to create a lot more content. My kids have been like, there hasn't been so much school because of COVID, and now it's summer, so I don't have as much time, but definitely in September, if not sooner, I think I'll be creating a lot of content. I have so many things I want to talk about that I'm so excited about, but I just haven't really found time, or maybe a system for doing that, but it's in the works. So in the meantime, I want to thank everyone. And if anyone would like to know more about what's going on, and maybe some more help connecting the dots on your path towards sleeping well forever, then head to our website, thesleepcoachschool.com, and you can find out ways to work with myself. All right, so with that said, again, thanks for tuning in, and I'll be back real soon. Until then, take it easy.